Hello, Miguel Trujillo here. It's May 17th, 2015, and I'm here producing another video. Now, again, like is usual with my other videos, I haven't rehearsed what I'm going to say. I don't have any notes. Honestly, even now, I don't really have a firm idea what I'm going to talk about. So you'll just have to bear with me for a few minutes. So, let's see. I've been eating a lot of chia seeds lately. Chia seeds and flax seeds. And I really like them. They've been really helpful in increasing the amount of fiber I eat in my diet. And I think that it'll be good for my cholesterol level. And my blood sugars are looking really good, so I'm really pleased about that. So I think these seeds, these chia seeds and flax seeds, they're fantastic. The flax seed that I eat is ground flaxseed. It's not the whole flaxseed, and I really like that. In fact, I mix the flax seeds in with the chia seeds when I eat them. I kind of eat them at the same time. I don't eat them separately. And what I've been doing is I've just been pouring some water onto them and then just eating them with a spoon in a bowl. I know, I'm pretty uncreative when it comes to food. Food in. That's basically my philosophy. Spot it, eat it. Except, of course, when it needs to be cooked. And, now I'm cooking all of my meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner in my own kitchen from scratch, so to speak. I cook them all. And I really like it. A lot of people go to restaurants a lot, and they purchase pre-made food. And, that's great, I guess. Short-term, sort of recreational eating, adventure eating, But I like preparing my own food. I think it's a valuable skill. I've learned a lot about cutting meat and selecting different kinds of meats for eating, and choosing spices, and using all the techniques of cooking. From frying pans to pots, and I'm really familiar with a lot of those techniques, and I become more familiar with them every day. After all, I prepare my food, my meals, 3 times a day. So, what that means is that when I go to work, I have a lunchbox that I take to work, and in that morning, I've sort of filled my lunchbox and my plastic containers with food that I've prepared. And I really think it's the way to go. Cooking your own food is great because, first of all, it's very frugal. You go to a steak restaurant and you want a steak, how much does it cost? At least $10. Like for a baked potato, salad, and a steak. Well, how much would it cost for me to prepare the same food at home? Well, a baked potato probably costs 50 cents or less. Salad, 50 cents or less. And the meat, I don't know, it depends on what kind of cut you get and how large that cut is and where you buy it, what store you buy it from. So, but I don't think it'd be unusual for a steak to cost $5. So, right there, you're easily half price. At half the cost, and that's fantastic. Also, you're not subject to the restaurant's rules. You're not subject to the tipping of the waiter or waitress. You don't have to deal with that whole hassle of ordering what you want. I think it's a great deal. I would much rather have a steak at home than have one prepared for me at a restaurant. I know that's strange, but there's something more to eating than just the flavor. for me, it's also a sense of accomplishment. Like, maybe I watched a video on YouTube that showed me how to prepare a steak in a special way, and I want to experiment with that method. Maybe a lot of the time I experiment with spices, I experiment with rubs, I experiment with marinades, I experiment with cooking techniques, different kinds of pans, different times, and at the end it's an accomplishment. It raises my self-esteem, and it tastes good. And you know what? I prepared it myself, so it has just enough salt on it, no more. It's got just as much pepper on it that I want, and no more, or less. If I'm having like an A1 sauce or Heinz 57 sauce, it's my favorite sauce because I bought it from the grocery store. I'm not stuck at a restaurant without my favorite sauce. And it's great too because I get to sort of manage the portion sizes. When you go to a restaurant, sometimes you get this steak and it's way too big. It's huge. You didn't anticipate it would be that big, and so you're stuck with you eat half a steak or 3/4 of a steak, and what are you gonna do? Are you gonna ask them to throw away that portion of the steak, or are you gonna get a doggy bag? There's a whole decision process that you have to go through, and it's bothersome. Why not just prepare the amount of steak that you want to eat at the moment? Same is true with everything else, like the drinks you're going to have. Have you ever went to a restaurant and they don't have the drink that you want to drink? Like you want lemonade and they don't have it, or you want Pepsi and they've got Coke instead? That happens to me all the time. Maybe they've got tea, but they've got the sweet tea and you don't like that. You'd rather have plain tea. This is very common. I never have that problem. Never, because I always get what I want. Always. Every time, 100% of the time. Now, it's true, it's not a very adventurous, I don't necessarily, I don't know, that's actually not true, because, with different marinade combinations, I can prepare an amazing steak that tastes fantastic, like something that you get at a restaurant. And I'm really pleased by it. I think it's really the only way to go. And I don't care for eating out anymore because it's just senseless. All that goes on, the waiter, the bill, the waiting, the ordering. There are just so many elements to it that I just don't. I'm not used to it anymore. I'm sure. Now, there is one aspect of it that I have to deal with, and that is I have to do my own dishes, and so that gets factored into the meal as well. When you're out at a restaurant, you don't have to do the dishes, but when you eat at home, you do. So, I find doing dishes is not that big a deal. Swoosh, swoosh, and it's clean, right? Well, that depends on your standards of cleanliness, of course. Mine are a little more strict than just swish, swish, but, I get the job done in my kitchen when I'm done with my meals. So, by the way, I was talking about chia and flaxseed, and these days the paleo diet is a diet that's really popular, and it's completely understandable. Today in our society, around the world, people are basically killing themselves with their fork. They're eating too much food, and the food that they're eating doesn't have a lot of nutritive value. It's a lot of fat, it's a lot of calories, and it's a lot of salt, and it's a real challenge to keep those things under control. It's really hard to keep those things under control if you're eating at restaurants all the time. But my point really about this paleo diet is that I think it's true. I think that in the sense that I think it's important that people start focusing on what the human body is, over millennia has evolved to eat. Now, what the funny thing is, we don't know. I mean, we got a pretty good idea through the science of anthropology and sociology and archaeology. We've got a good sense of what humans used to do, and paleontology. So, and we're gathering new information all the time about what ancient people ate. And, some of the articles I've been reading have been pretty interesting. A lot of them are, I guess, anthropologists who go to these sites where ancient people ate, and they collect all kinds of data from the midden sites, where I guess that's the trash piles, and where their fires were, and they look for bones and other things, and they also look at what are called coprolites, which are the feces of the people who ate food near the fire. And I've read articles about what these the analysis of these samples, and it turns out that a lot of it is a lot of vegetable matter, and it has a lot of fiber. Of course, there's a lot of depending on where these tests are taking, where these tribes are located, whether they're next to the ocean, no doubt they'll have some shellfish and some fish bones and other marine life, like I don't know. They have a lot of marine life and marine plant waste there. Or also, maybe they are in the desert, and they'll find a lot of other things, like they'll find seeds of plants, and there are analogs of modern plants to those plants, and they tell us about those. I think it's important to pay attention to these studies so that we can get a better idea of what human beings have eaten through the millennia. And I think we know that chia seeds and flax seeds are probably some of the things that these ancient people ate. And I can tell you that I've had a lot of good experience with chia and flax and in my diet. And I think my body is responding very positively to these foods, and I'm really happy I found them and started integrating them into my diet. It's funny, I've been on this planet for like 43 years, and it's only now that I'm really applying these ideas. And now that's not to say that I haven't done the paleo diet before, because I have, or some variation thereof. And the thing about health information is that it's so complex. Sometimes it's hard to understand. Sometimes, and actually this happens a lot, there's a lot of difference of opinion out there from various experts and pseudo-experts. And it's really hard to get a handle on what the real answer is to a question. A lot of people think about the paleo diet, and they'll think, oh, it's really meat-centric. Or others will say, like, oh, it's more plant-centric, for a plant-based diet. Now, so what's the real answer? Well, you sort of have to go to the first sources. And thankfully, we've got the internet today, and we can go to those sources and read them and learn from them. I don't know. I really feel sorry for all the inhabitants of the planet because, unfortunately, our health system does not spit out a really accurate, complete, comprehensive, understandable information. A lot of it is anecdotal and just quick summaries that may not even be accurate of a lot of different dietary experiments. And so I know I'm just swimming in the data. I'm swimming in the data, swimming in the interpretations, and they're all over the media, and they're on the radio, on the internet, on computers, and piecing it together is really tough. I mean, I've been trying to piece together this health information for years, like 10, 15 years, and it's really hard to know who to trust. in the health information fields, in the health fields, you see that there are a lot of conflicts of interests out there. You've got food manufacturers saying one thing, you've got pharmaceutical manufacturers saying another, you've got retailers saying another thing, scientists saying some things, and then you've got it just boggles the mind, the different perspectives that you can have on one subject or another, and how muddled the information becomes after it passes through 3 or 4 different people to get to your ears. And so, that's a real struggle, and I sympathize with the rest of humanity to try to understand this. And though I can see that it's clear, it's sort of like global warming, and it's clear we've got to get our act together. We've got the obesity epidemic, and people are dying like flies out there from strokes and heart attacks, cancer, and anyway, it's a real struggle, and I not only can I sympathize, but I empathize as well with all the people out there. What can I do? I'm stuck in the same situation. But we do our best. We can only do our best with what we know today. And so anyway, let's see. Beyond that, what? Well, like I said, I've been eating chia, and I've been really liking it. Let's see. What's been going on? Well, we've been getting rain in California lately, and that's good. I'm very pleased. I really don't have a very good, I don't have a, I guess the problem with the state of California mostly is that, while we get rain, we're not getting enough. And not only that, but I think probably one of the most critical problems is that we're not getting snow in the mountains. We're not getting snow in the mountains. Why is that so important? Well, because snow turns to streams and fills lakes, and that snow is critical. So, I really hope that this little episode of drought here in the state of California doesn't last too much longer. That reminds me, I heard a story on the internet that there are at least some scientists, one I think at JPL, who thinks that this drought that we're having in the state of California might be over in about 1.5 years. And the ideas that he's basing this claim on have to do with the warming blobs in the ocean. And I guess, now I don't know enough about the subject to make any real comments. I can only repeat what I've heard in the media and in the news articles, that there are these blobs, these areas of much warmer water. Maybe they're warmer by 1, 2, 3, 4 degrees Fahrenheit than the rest of the ocean. And the position of these blobs in the ocean have an effect on onshore rainfall, or just the rainfall on land. And honestly, I couldn't tell you whether that was true or not, but it seems plausible. So I'm excited about it. I'm glad. I would definitely, I do want to see some more precipitation here in the state of California. It's been like 4 or 5 years now we've had the drought, and I can see now the connection between water and life. There is a direct correlation between water and life here on land. If we don't get the water that we need, life suffers. And I'm seeing a lot of examples in local news about how life is suffering. For example, I've heard stories of mountain lions and coming down from the mountains, coyotes coming down from the mountains to drink from ponds and pools and other water sources here in town. And I've heard stories about everything from insects to snakes to rodents, finding their way into people's yards and gardens to get access to water. And so, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, because humans get their water from the water underground, the fossil water, we have water. And the poor animals that are walking around out in our environment don't have the sources of water that they need. Maybe the lakes and the ponds and the pools and the artisan springs, they're not producing like they used to. And of course, they're not getting the animals aren't getting the rain that they expect. So it's not showing up in plants and other places to help these animals out. So, I can only imagine the devastation that is occurring outside the city limits in the environment. Now, the funny thing is, I tend to stay inside the city limits, so my perspective is pretty warped. But given these drought conditions, I can only guess at, the devastation of the plant and animal life that's going on. I hear that trees in the state of California are really suffering because of not having water when they need it. And boy, that's terrible. We have a lot of trees in the state of California, and it's a shame when they start dying. I think we all suffer. Think of all the habitat that's lost because the trees are dying, and just think about the trees themselves and their offspring. They're just not reproducing, and they're dying, and they're getting dry. And oh boy, I've got a little frog in my throat here. Looks like I need some water or something. But yeah, these poor trees, they die, they fall over, and what happens? Well, the sun pulls water out of them, they decay, and they just become kindling for wildfires and forest fires. So, I don't know. We're sort of hurting in California now, and but it could be worse. I guess that's an optimistic note. And the reason is because we know that there have been droughts that have been a lot worse, in recent times. I know that I've heard stories about a drought in the 1970s that was worse than the current drought we're in. Well, that's encouraging. I'm glad to know that. That's pretty recent in time. And so, anyway, I'm glad. Well, I have hope anyway that this will end. Of course, I don't have any real good reasons to believe that it'll end. It seems like there is a lack of evidence out there suggesting that the drought will come to an end, but I have a feeling it will. Probably within a couple of years. It's just not clear right now what's going to precipitate the end of it. So in the meantime, we'll just be obtaining all of our fossil water from underground sources and depleting those sources which took thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not 100,000s of years to develop. We'll be depleting those water sources. Who knows? Maybe these salination plants that a lot of bright people are considering are going to save the day, so to speak. I don't know. They take a lot of energy to produce their product, which is clean water. And we're not very good at producing. When it comes to energy, Well, it's just expensive for us. But particularly when it comes to water, I know that water, I don't know, water is, I think it's an energy intensive operation. But you know what? If you got nothing to drink, I think people are willing to invest. You know, what's even more surprising, too, about this drought is that just a couple days ago, I read an article saying that Washington State was in a state of emergency because of droughts. In Washington State, which is amazing. I used to live in Seattle, and it was, I remember it just raining all the time. Gray, cloudy skies, rain, you know, continually, well, actually intermittently, throughout the day, every day. And I remember the snows, you know, the snows were pretty deep. I only lived in Seattle for about a year. So I can really only talk about one winter. But it was a pretty severe winter. There was plenty of water then, by the way. But I wouldn't have expected Washington State to have a problem with water. I guess the problem in Washington State has more to do with the lack of snow than the lack of rain. Snow is important. Snow is important because, you know, when the snow melt creates these streams of water that flow down the mountains. And streams and rivers are very useful to man and to animals and to plants and to just the ecosystem in general. And if you don't get that snow, boy, it starts playing havoc. Well, let's see. What else? Well, it's Sunday, and so I'm looking forward to another week of work, and that's good. Working is better than not working. Let's see, what else is going on? I don't know. This might be it for today. I don't think I have a whole lot of interesting subjects to address today. I haven't been reading a lot of books lately. I've got one book that I'm working on called The Worldly Philosophers by Heilbronner. And it discusses various economic philosophers. Philosophers of economics. How many different ways can I say that? Let's see. I'm also working on another book called The Dream of Reason. I think I alluded to that book in a previous video. Are those the only two books I'm working on right now? Yeah, I have not been doing a lot of reading. I've been watching Netflix lately. Probably too much. I've been watching Friends and 30 Rock. I really like 30 Rock with Tina Fey. Yeah, that's an awesome show. I also like Seinfeld. I watch Seinfeld every once in a while, the sitcom. And what else? Sometimes I'll watch The Office, which is a sitcom I really get a kick out of. You know, those are really the things that I watch. I also tend to binge watch now that I've got Netflix. And it's really been great. I love binge watching Friends and 30 Rock. I get a lot of pleasure out of that. Well, anyway, my throat is feeling a little dry, so I'm going to move on to whatever I need to do next. I think I need to do some dishes. But it was nice visiting with you, and I hope you have a fantastic day and a stupendous week. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.